around this situation. So in the ski industry, this has actually kind of gone away, especially with COVID, but when you participate in a film, a ski movie, rather than like Hollywood, where they premiere it in Hollywood and that's pretty much the global premiere, in skiing, we premiere them everywhere. So if you're part of the cast of a ski film, you go to all these premieres across North America, sometimes you go over to Europe, and it's a big thing. It's like, it's kind of one of your jobs as a professional athlete, or as a professional skier, is to go do these movie premieres. So my ski sponsor had said, hey, we're doing the global premiere for our movie in Salt Lake City, you kind of have to be there. The unfortunate part about this whole thing that they do is that the premieres are always in September and October. And as a guy who really likes to hunt elk, it's really inconvenient. However, this time around, I happen to have a tag for the state of Utah, and I happen to know some places I could hunt pretty close to Salt Lake. So I said to myself, I think I can make this work. So essentially, it boils down to, it was kind of a public land, over-the-counter tag, archery. I brought my bow with me, and I had from about 1 p.m. till I needed to be at the premiere for the VIP stuff, similar to what we had earlier tonight, at 7. And so I said to myself, okay, it's about 5.5 miles into where the elk are, or the good spot. I gotta leave at 1 p.m., 5.5 miles, I could do that in an hour and 15 minutes, maybe? Yeah, I could do this. That'll give me a couple hours out there. Maybe I'll get lucky. And if you take anything away from my story tonight, never say no to that maybe I could get lucky question you ask yourself. Could I get lucky? Yes, potentially. So I book it into the backcountry, and I threw out that 5.5 mile number earlier because that was pretty much what I told myself. That's the furthest point I'll go in from the trailhead. If I don't see any elk by the time I get 5.5 miles in, I should probably turn around. I really probably should. So I get to this, and I knew there was a nice high glassing peak there where I could see a lot of country. Of course, I walk all the way in, get to that glassing peak, and I see an elk about 3.5 miles further in. And I say to myself, I have a problem, guys, with time management, okay? Especially when it comes to hunting, but with just about everything in my life. Time management is an issue for me. Ask my wife how many times I've showed up 5 to 8 hours later than I said I was going to. And so, I don't do that anymore. Now I tell her that I'm gonna be home tomorrow, and I come home tonight, so that I get some bonus hours. I'm learning. So, I'm having this conversation with myself the whole time walking in, because I know I'm probably gonna see an elk further in. And I had talked myself out of it ahead of time. And I still, from that peak with my binoculars, am looking at this nice bull 2.5, 3 miles further across the canyon. I'm like, I could probably do it. I could probably get there. And the problem is my time management issue comes from a little thing called optimism. I tell myself, I can do anything. And unfortunately for everyone who has to deal with me professionally or on a day-to-day basis, I've been pretty lucky and I've done some things that people told me I couldn't do. So I still think I can stack 12 things into an afternoon and pull it off. I'm like, yeah, probably. This will take 25 minutes. If I drive for 3.5 minutes here, then I'll get to that thing at 4:30, and then I'll have actually 37 seconds of flex time there. This is gonna be perfect. So that's what's running through my head as I'm dealing with this elk. And I made the right decision, believe it or not. I turned around, I said, all right, it's your lucky day, buddy. I am gonna let you go. Today is not your last, this morning was not your last sunrise. So I'm walking back, and I think I probably, because I was dragging my feet, took a little too long to even make that decision. So now I'm looking at my watch walking back, and I'm like, uh-oh, I'm already late. Didn't even do the thing that I wasn't supposed to do, that I told myself I wasn't gonna do, and all that, and I'm still late. So all I did is I turned the volume up on my hike speed. I was just long striding my way down the hill. You know, here's how fast I was walking. If you take the volume and right here is jog, I was one notch down from jogging down the hill. With my bow still in my hand, because you never know, but I'm jogging down the hill essentially, and it's actually a really well-used trail, public land, awesome place that I hunt every year. And I'm cruising along, all of a sudden there's this giant rustling in the brush. And the country I'm in is all oak brush. Oak brush is a beautiful thing and some of the worst thing in the world, because it keeps a lot of elk and deer alive, but it makes it really hard to kill them with a bow. Because it's like between 4 and 8 feet tall, and it's really thick. The elk and deer love to go in there, they got plenty to eat, acorns, oak leaves, etc. And so I'm cruising through this nice trail through the oak brush, and I hear this gigantic rustling, like a herd of horses just got kicked up. And I stop, and I'm like, oh man, I think I just bumped some elk right here. And so I stop, and I think to myself, now the alarm in my head is going off. You know that alarm, anybody can relate, that says you need to be somewhere? It's kind of like the alarm on your phone. I'm kind of losing my voice. I can't do that right now. It's going off in my head. Do not stop. Let the elk you just bumped go. Keep moving. But I stopped. And then all of a sudden I hear a whoa. Whoa. And I was like, oh cool, it's a moose. This is awesome. So I called back to him. Whoa. Then he calls back to me. It was at this point in the story that I hit the snooze button on the alarm that was going off in my head. I was like, I'm no longer stressed about time. I have fully enveloped myself in this outdoor experience I'm having. So I called back and forth to him a couple of times, and I was just kind of having this euphoric moment in the wild. I'm sure some of you guys can relate to that. I completely forgot about time. And so we talked back and forth quite a bit, and I started thinking to myself, I wonder what we're saying to each other, me and this moose. This is how ridiculous my brain is, guys. I'm wondering, what are we saying to each other? And I learned how to moose call actually while I was skiing up in Canada. So the brain path that I go on while I'm still sitting here not getting closer to my engagement that I have to be at is, I bet you I sound Canadian because I learned how to call in Canada. So I'm thinking to myself, this is probably what I'm saying to him. Oh, hey, how's it going over there, eh? You know, I've got some pretty good acorns over here, eh, bud? How are you doing over there? And I think the Utah moose answers back, oh yeah, man, it's good. It's really good. This is a good spot. Listen, I've been looking for my 5 wives. Have you seen them? So, after that, I blow off one more moose call, and there's a rustling in the brush from the direction that the moose was not. And I realized to myself, oh wow, there's actually some elk in here too, next to that moose that I've been talking to for the last 15 minutes. Great. And I pull out my binoculars, and this is something that you have to do. People who have hunted in thick country will relate to this. This is my technique. I toggle the focus back and forth. So when you're trying to comb through and find something in really thick country, if you focus really far and then really close and kind of move like this, it's a good way of picking things out, because you're better off picking something out that's in focus than just trying to look for motion. So I'm toggling the focus back and forth, and I find a stinking antler sticking up. And it's 6-foot tall oak brush, so I know that's not a deer horn, I know it's an elk. And I have an elk tag in my pocket. I immediately put an arrow on the string and just start thinking through what I'm gonna do. So this elk and his buddy, the two bulls, come up and over the ridge that I'm standing on, and they drop right off into this little perfect, it was almost like a crater, like a meteor had struck there. So here's the ridge line, right here is this little crater, it's all oak brush, there's a nice oak brush rim around it. They drop right off into this thing. And like the bow hunter in me is just like, dude, it doesn't get any better. Because they're gonna go, as soon as I'm out of their sight, I can just walk right at them, maybe shoot one of them. So they drop in, and I just start cooking. I kicked my boots off real fast and ran towards them on the trail. So part of the problem with hunting in really thick country is you make a lot of noise going through it, just as the animals you're hanging out with make a lot of noise. But I was able to use the trail because the trail goes right next to this little crater. It was literally like the perfect situation for a bow hunter. So I get about halfway to where I was hoping to get before they start cresting the rise, and there's an elk face that sticks up and his eyeballs are looking right at me. And I realized that I stopped. I mean, when he caught me, I look around me and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. He crested that rise in the one bare spot on this entire mountain. So I'm just the guy on the hillside with 6-inch oak brush next to me, and I'm just like, uh-oh, this isn't good. So there's something I do, another little tip or tactic for you. When something catches you moving, I chant to myself. It's just like the little mantra in the back of my head. I kind of glance around me, I look see what the most likely thing I could possibly be is, and I think there's a little bit of telepathy involved in this, because I just say, I'm a bush. I am a bush. So we have this stare now for what felt like forever, and he finally decides that I was a bush and starts walking off. So I draw back, and he takes a bite of grass and turns straight at me. And I was guessing I ranged him. I ranged him at 35 yards before he started walking. Then he started walking, he turns right at me. And this was long before I'd ever heard of the concept of, or even thought of taking a frontal shot at an elk. So it was just, that didn't even cross my mind. I tell this story to somebody else and they're like, dude, you should have just shot him in the chest. And I was like, you can do that? So I had no idea. Anyways, I'm staring at this elk that I in my mind can't shoot at this angle with my bow at full draw, and I immediately start regretting bumping my bow up to 75 pounds. I was like, wow, seemed good on the range, didn't it? But it's not very good right now. I'm holding my bow back, this elk is staring at me again, so I start going through the mantra again. I'm a bush. I'm a bush. And he finally turns broadside, and it was like 25 yards. I was shaking like a leaf, but I was pretty confident I could make the shot, hit the release, and the satisfaction of watching the fletchings disappear behind that bull's shoulder was something. It was my first bull elk with a bow. So it was amazing. I hope you all have that opportunity someday, because it was spectacular. So I go through this range of emotions, right? I go from, wow, I just got my first bull with a bow. And then I look at my watch and I'm like, oh no. Because my team manager, here's a little bit more backstory. He had literally told me, I'm gonna fire you if you're not on time to this thing. So I was like, oh no, I've really stepped in it now. But I went up and found the bull pretty quickly, tagged it. Fortunately, had cell service right there, so I called him. I was like, hey man, listen. What had happened was, I was gonna be on time, I promise. I was gonna, but this elk walked right in front of me on the trail. What was I supposed to do? So it all ended up working out pretty decently. The story kind of got around, like, oh yeah, you guys all expected to see David here. He's not here because he killed an elk. So I showed up to the premiere a couple hours late with blood on my hands in camo, and I kid you not, and this is a rarity in skiing, everybody at the bar gave me a standing ovation. It was the most unworldly experience I've ever had. So the way I would like to connect that to BHA is the fact that I was hunting public land with an opportunity that everybody has. And I was able to make a connection for all of those people because I turned around and cooked that elk for all of the same folks for the next thing that we did, the next meeting that we had, the entire office of the ski company that I skied for. I cooked them a wild game meal. They got to eat the elk that I was late to the premiere for. And I may not have converted a lot of hunters, but I made a lot of people okay with hunting at that point. So that's our opportunity, that's our responsibility, and I appreciate you guys all showing up tonight and supporting a great cause. Here's a public land. Everybody say hey to my little man Malachi. He's a future elk hunter, I guarantee it.
All right, man. A little behind the scenes, I was the moose, the other moose.